Hi, and thank you for joining our Connect the Dots series, where we talk a little bit about the various ways that knowledge graphs support many of the data management initiatives that are out there. So today we're going to be talking about GraphRag. I'm Doug Kimball, the Chief Marketing Officer here at Ontotext. I'm joined by Sumit. Please share who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Sumit. I've been with Ontotext for about a year and a half now. I'm ex-Gartner analyst. My role here is a strategic technology director covering areas around pre-sales, marketing, thought leadership, and solutions architecture.
So in short, you know a good deal about the topic. So let's jump in. So let's talk about graph retrieval augmented generation. It's a very hot topic right now. You see it in a lot of different articles. A lot of people are putting thoughts out there. I think it'd be helpful for our audience to understand what is graph retrieval augmented generation, or GraphRag, as we tend to shorten it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. GraphRag, in my opinion, is a knowledge-enabled RAG approach. And here we are augmenting the RAG approach, which a lot of us are already familiar with a knowledge graph to retrieve information from a knowledge graph, which helps to build the context around the entities that are involved when a user queries an LLM. Now, this approach sort of enhances the traditional RAG approach by integrating knowledge graph and LLMs. It leverages the structured nature of a graph and enables efficient, accurate retrieval of relevant information that needs to be passed to the LLMs for generating better responses. That is how I would put it in short.
Makes sense. So there's a lot of theories out there and reasons for when to use it, why to use it. So can you give me some examples of when you would want to use GraphRag, but also the other side? When would you not want to use a GraphRag approach?
Yeah, an excellent question. Before we go into that, answering that question, right, let's look at what are the limitations of traditional RAG, right, and why the whole GraphRag was invented or thought about. Traditional RAG has limitations around failing to index documents that are related specifically to the user queries, thus not being able to provide them the right context. The documents that are related to a user's query often also are retrieved, but it's low in relevance. For example, numerous documents are returned, but the right one, the most relevant one, is not often chosen. The other very important reason is in RAG, when we chunk the document, it could happen that the different chunks have interrelationships within them. During the chunking process, those interrelationships are sort of severed and again results in low relevance. Now, with the GraphRag, the interconnected nature of the entities that are part of the graph is very crucial to generating contextually correct and coherent responses. GraphRag-based approaches there have been studies done by us as well as by other organizations that have demonstrated improvements in precision and recall over traditional retrieval methods. GraphRag thus overcomes these limitations with semantic reasoning and retrieval. Now, when do you not use a GraphRag? In my opinion, GraphRag is again not to be used every time. Especially, it's not advisable if your traditional RAG is working well. It's returning relevant queries. Now, introduction of GraphRag needs a graph database or a knowledge graph. And this should be justified with some factual evidence, especially when there is a mismatch between information that is retrieved from a plain RAG system not answering your queries. And this is actually what is something that helps overcome the traditional RAG limitations. The approach, however, has the challenge that your knowledge graphs need to be complete and up to date or refreshed with your latest data to ensure that it is returning the right results. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know we've talked about we consider there's three different types of a graph rag. The graph as a content store, graph as a subject matter expert, maybe you can call it the source, then a graph as a database for like natural language queries and processing. So I guess the final question would be is why is using a graph rag so important? You talked a little bit about that, but also you mentioned semantics. So how are semantic knowledge graphs a key part of the success of using graph rag or bringing graph rag in, excuse me?
Yeah, knowledge graphs, as are built on top of graphs, and thus knowledge graphs include semantics and the context associated with the raw data, the metadata around it. And knowledge graph mitigates issues caused by the nature of the split approach of RAG, which is the chunking approach, as I said earlier. GraphRag leverages knowledge graphs to enable this understanding of retrieval of this interconnected heterogeneous information, providing the context to help generate better prompts, augmenting the original data that an organization have along with the metadata. GraphRag thus enables LLMs to provide contextually aware and knowledge-enriched prompting to help LLMs sort of provide the right kind of guardrails to answer the questions. Now, there are different ways in which, as you were asking about the different approaches of GraphRag patterns, right? You can extract relevant document chunks, which are enriched with metadata, providing the LLM the right prompts to answer the questions. Also, what you can do is extract some information from the graph, which we can call the subgraph, which enhances the concepts that are associated, related to the entities that are being asked in the question. And it can also help to map a sort of a natural language question or a natural language query to a graph query and execute the query and ask the LLM to summarize the results. So these are some of the ways in which a graph rag, which is backed by a knowledge graph, helps to provide better results to LLMs.
Great. And we obviously, I think the explosion of large language models, as you and I have talked about, has led to a lot more interest in knowledge graphs, realizing the importance of those. So GraphRag is just one of the many approaches that I think can bring a lot of value to that. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Again, we try to keep these short and sweet. If you want to learn more about knowledge graphs and about GraphRag in general, please go to ontotext.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, and we're always happy to take questions. So Sumit, thank you as always for your time and knowledge. Appreciate it.
And finally, one more thing is Ontotext provides in-depth training to allow you to incorporate knowledge graphs and the GraphRag technology into your Gen AI pipeline. So we have extensive training. If you're interested, please reach out.
Great point. All right. Thanks very much.